The day I saw my husband kiss his mistress, I didn't confront him. I watched. I smiled. And I went home to draft the divorce papers. While they were busy lying, I was busy building. No. They both lost everything. And the little boy who calls me mom just crowned me something better than a wife. His queen. They say reunions bring back nostalgia. Old friends, past crushes, stories you'd almost forgotten. I thought this one would be like that. A chance to show how far I'd come, how far we had come. But I wasn't prepared to meet her. The moment I saw Vanessa Lynn, the air shifted. Her once luminous skin now dulled by time, her posture slouched, her smile brittle and forced. She wore a modest black dress, one sleeve slipping off her shoulder, exposing collarbones that jutted like warnings. Life had clearly not been kind to her. And yet, I couldn't look away. It had taken me 2 hours to get ready that evening. I'd cancelled an important meeting at my clinic just so I could be there. I remember applying highlighter on the bridge of my nose, curling my hair just enough, and choosing a dress Ryan once said made me look like I walked off a magazine cover. I wasn't competing with anyone. At least that's what I told myself. "Wow, Claire," someone whispered as I entered the room. "Still got the best eye in the room." I smiled politely and nodded. My heels clicked softly against the hotel's polished floor as I stepped inside the private lounge Ryan had booked. The ambient lighting made the wine sparkle in our glasses. Familiar laughter floated in the air. Everything was perfect, until Ryan's arm casually slipped around my waist. "Our Vanessa," he said, smiling toward her across the room. "She's still the hidden gem of our class." His voice was soft, wistful even, like a memory tasted again after years. I blinked at him, unsure if I heard correctly. "Our Vanessa?" I turned slowly, following his gaze to where she sat, alone. She hadn't even noticed us. She looked uncomfortable, eyes darting toward the exit like she was planning her escape. "She's been through a lot," he added quietly, almost too quietly. "Abuse. Cheating. Raising a daughter by herself." There was something unfamiliar in his tone. Not just pity. Something softer. Something more dangerous. I cleared my throat. "That's sad to hear," I said, steadying my voice. "But let's not forget why we're here." His hand tightened slightly on my waist. Later, when we stepped out of the lounge for a breather, I finally turned to him. "You really called her our Vanessa?" Ryan scoffed, tugging at the collar of his shirt. "It's a class reunion, Claire. Not a red carpet. Why are you dressed like a damn peacock?" The words hit like a slap. I blinked, stunned. "Excuse me." He rolled his eyes and waved it off. "I just meant, you didn't need to try so hard." Try. I turned to face him fully, my mouth opening, but no words came. Not yet. Not when his face already bore the faintest smile, like he had no idea what he'd just done. Back in college, I fell for Ryan Carter the moment he stood on stage at a debate competition, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt and speaking with a reckless kind of brilliance that electrified the entire auditorium. He hadn't even noticed me back then. Not until I started volunteering at the hospital where his father worked. I was the girl who kept smiling at him in the hallway. The girl who dared to ask for his number. I pursued him with a boldness I rarely used on anyone. And it worked. Until I met her. Vanessa Lynn was everything I wasn't: elegant, aloof, born into money. Rumor was Ryan had chased her for 4 years straight. For years, and she never caved. She was the kind of woman who could insult someone in front of a crowd and still be admired for her confidence. I remember one time she turned to Ryan just as I walked by and said loud enough for me to hear, "Guys like you, rich, cocky, shallow, only impress the ones who haven't seen better." She didn't just say it. She believed it. Eventually she picked someone else. Someone who adored her more than Ryan ever could. That man married her. And Ryan married me. Our love wasn't a whirlwind. It was slow and steady, like learning how to dance together one beat at a time. We built our life one chapter at a time. Marriage, Jamie, then the business. Thought it was real. Thought it was enough. Ryan rarely agreed to reunions. When he kissed me and said, "Want to come with me this time?" I was surprised. I had an evening client lined up, a new mom struggling with postnatal recovery, but I rescheduled. For him. Even when I was fixing my makeup, he walked past and kissed my neck, murmuring, "You smell amazing." I had melted. Back then I still believed that when he kissed me he only thought of me. When we walked into that reunion I immediately felt the shift. They all noticed me. Not just because of my dress or my figure, but because I wasn't the shy, bookish girl they remembered. I had grown. I had built something from the ground up. A thriving postpartum recovery brand with TV ads, influencer sponsorships, and a clinic that employed 15 women. You're the real success story, Claire, someone said, holding my hand. My wife swears by your belly wrap serum. I smiled, humble but proud. Thank you. We're actually expanding into skincare next month. Meanwhile, Vanessa sat in the corner like a ghost in a painting. Faded. Unfinished. She didn't speak unless someone forced her to. I noticed Ryan's eyes flicking to her again. Then he squeezed my wrist. Hard. Sit, he whispered, almost yanking me down. His grip lingered long enough for my skin to throb beneath his fingers. And then she stood up. Wine glass in hand. Smile trembling. It's been a long time, she said to the room. I'm happy to see you all doing so well. I came today with a small request. I work in medical equipment sales now. If any of you ever need anything, I'd be happy to offer you a discount. The silence that followed was almost cruel. Until someone chuckled. Well, that's convenient. Ryan owns a hospital and Claire runs a clinic. Go toast with them. Maybe you'll land some sales. Ryan actually did it. He walked over, glass raised, clinked it against hers and downed the wine in one gulp. I didn't even get to remind him we drove there together. Ryan knew I couldn't drive after dark. I had night blindness, something he'd known since we first started dating. He always took the wheel after sunset. Tonight, though, he didn't care. I pulled out a card from my purse and handed it to her. I handle purchasing for both our businesses. You can contact me directly. Vanessa accepted it, gave a quick excuse about picking up her daughter and left. The room buzzed again. She still looks decent, someone said. She's not as sharp as Claire though, another offered. Claire's the real upgrade. Ryan pulled me close, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. Our Claire's always been a high potential stock, he said with a grin. I should have smiled. I should have felt triumphant. But for some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about the way his fingers had dug into my wrist. Or how long he stared at her. Later, as we stood outside waiting for the car, I dialed the designated driver. Ryan, visibly buzzed from just one drink, leaned against the wall beside me. He sighed. You know what makes me sad? I didn't answer. She used to shine, he said softly. Vanessa. Back in the day she had this glow. Seeing her like that, it's like watching a star burn out. I looked at him. And he looked through me. Not at the woman he came home to every night. Not at the mother of his child. But at a memory wearing a black dress. My voice trembled but I kept it steady. You feel sorry for her? He nodded. Wouldn't you? I swallowed the ache rising in my throat. Yes, I whispered. I would. But I wasn't talking about Vanessa. I was talking about myself. The next morning, everything was back to normal. Or at least that's what Ryan pretended. He stood in the kitchen, still smelling faintly of last night's cologne, flipping pancakes for Jamie while humming some old 90s song. Jamie giggled as syrup dripped messily onto his dinosaur plate. It should have been a perfect moment. A husband, a son, a warm kitchen. But I stood there at the doorway watching Ryan through a lens I couldn't seem to clean anymore. The way he had looked at Vanessa. The way he had gripped my wrist. The way he drank knowing I couldn't drive at night and didn't care. I shook the thoughts away. I had clients to check in on and renovation updates to approve at the new aesthetics clinic. Life moves forward, even when your heart's still stuck somewhere else. I didn't expect to hear from Vanessa Lynn again. But 3 days later I did. A text popped up during my staff meeting. Hi Claire, this is Vanessa. I'm reaching out regarding equipment procurement. Hope I'm not intruding. I stared at the screen a beat too long. Of course she still had my number. I had written it on the business card I handed her at the reunion. But something about her wording didn't sit right. Not, hi Claire, hope you're well. Not, hi Claire, just following up. Just, I'm reaching out, like I was the one who should be grateful she even remembered me. So I was polite. Professional. Hi Vanessa, thanks for reaching out. Send me a catalog when you have a chance. I'll review with my team and see what aligns. It was a simple, clean reply. I had no intention of dragging it out. Except it didn't end there. That night, while I was reviewing invoices, Ryan casually said from the hallway, Oh, by the way, I talked to Vanessa earlier. She's got some good pricing on diagnostic monitors. I looked up from my laptop. You talked to her? He nodded, sliding off his tie. She came by the hospital this afternoon. Said she bumped into one of our old professors and they started chatting in the cafeteria. She asked about our ICU upgrades and I figured I'd hear her out. My lips parted but I said nothing. I handled procurement for both my clinic and Ryan's hospital. Not because I demanded it but because I had the experience. I knew how to negotiate, how to spot inflated costs, how to read between the manufacturer lines. It was always our unspoken agreement. Ryan knew that. I already gave her my card, I said calmly. She can just deal with me directly. He shrugged. Didn't seem like a big deal. He had the brochures on her. I took a few. I stared at him. You're bypassing me. He raised an eyebrow. Claire, seriously? I'm not being petty. This is business. His eyes narrowed slightly. And you don't think this reaction is? There was the shift. That subtle twist of tone. The one that made me feel like I was the crazy one. I didn't say you couldn't be involved, he continued. I just made a small decision while I was busy managing, an actual hospital. I clenched my jaw and turned back to my laptop. Noted. 2 nights later I woke up to the sound of faint buzzing. Ryan's phone, left charging on the side table, lit up with a notification. Vanessa Lynn, got the revised specs. We'll send you photos later. Hope I didn't wake you, smiley face. I stared at the screen. My heart was calm, eerily so. It wasn't rage I felt. It was confirmation. Ryan never locked his phone. I didn't need to snoop. I wasn't that kind of woman. I simply got up, walked into the kitchen and made myself tea. The bitterness of the ginger root sat heavy on my tongue. 10 minutes later Ryan walked in, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Why were you up? I could ask you the same, I said, sipping slowly. Busy texting your vendor at 1 a.m.? He blinked. What? I shrugged. You left your phone on the nightstand. She messaged you. Ryan exhaled, the kind of sigh men use when they think you're being emotional. She has a kid. Her evenings are hectic. It's the only time she can respond. She's not your only vendor, I said coolly. Funny how none of the others text you after midnight. His expression hardened. Are you seriously jealous? No, I said. I'm professionally insulted. He scoffed. You're reading into this way too much, Claire. She's just trying to stay afloat. You saw how she was at the reunion, she's struggling. I didn't respond. Because I wasn't sure which part upset me more, that he was texting her so freely, or that he was defending her with such softness. The next day I spoke with my assistant Ting about our renovation timeline. But even as we reviewed paint samples and equipment lists, I couldn't shake the gnawing doubt. Was I overthinking? Was this just Ryan being generous? Generosity wasn't a crime, but discretion mattered too. Boundaries. Respect. I used to believe Ryan understood those things. That evening we had dinner at home. Jamie was playing with his toy train at the table, making elaborate choo-choo noises. I'd made his favorite butter garlic noodles with tiny broccoli trees. Ryan was on his phone. Dinner's ready, I said gently. Just a sec, he mumbled, typing fast. I waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Even Jamie looked up at him, confused. I finally put my fork down. Is this equipment issue urgent? Ryan looked up, almost startled. Huh. You haven't touched your food. He set the phone aside with a sheepish smile and reached over to pat Jamie's head. Sorry, buddy. Mommy's right. Let's eat. I tried to let it go. But it followed me into the bedroom. That night, as we got ready for bed, I asked, What's going on with the order? Ryan glanced at me while brushing his teeth. It's just a delay with one of the machines. Might be a parts issue. Vanessa's checking. So she's the sales rep and tech support? He laughed, spitting into the sink. Claire, come on. No, really, I said. Is her company that unprofessional, or is she just playing hero? He wiped his mouth and looked at me, amused. Wow. Are you actually jealous? Stop saying that like it's a punchline. Ryan stepped forward, cupping my chin. I wasn't even persistent about her back then, he said. Why would I care now? I didn't answer. Because my chest still ached. Not from jealousy but from recognition. This wasn't about Vanessa. It was about trust. A few days later Ryan came home with cake and flowers. I sorted everything, he said brightly, placing the bouquet on the counter. No more midnight texts. No more back and forth. Just wanted to help a friend out, that's all. He kissed me light and perfunctory. You were right, okay? I nodded slowly. But then his mother arrived. Mrs. Carter. Uninvited as usual. I heard about what Ryan did for that poor girl, she said, setting down her purse like she owned our kitchen. You should be grateful, Claire. It shows he has a kind heart. She popped a grape into her mouth and smirked. If he saw someone he used to care about in trouble and didn't lift a finger, that would make him cold. And that's not the kind of man I raised. I blinked. You heard. He told me, she said. Vanessa's had a rough life. And look at her now, washed up. You really think my son would trade you for that? Don't be insecure. I stared at her, stunned. She leaned back, continuing, and while we're at it, this business of yours? All this work, these clinics, all this hustle? It's a bit much. Why exhaust yourself when our family doesn't even need the money? Just take a part-time job if you must. Focus on raising Jamie. That's what matters most. I felt something shift in me, a quiet final click. I smiled. Then I stood and walked out of the room. I didn't say a word that night. Didn't bring up the flowers, or the cake, or the patronizing lecture from the woman who thought her son's infidelity was my fault for being too ambitious. I just lay in bed watching the ceiling fan spin, counting the seconds between its clicks. Ryan reached for my hand sometime around midnight. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold on either, because deep down I already knew. The cracks had started forming, and no amount of flowers could fill them. The silence that night was almost peaceful. Ryan slept beside me, snoring softly, his hand resting on my hip as if everything between us had been settled with flowers and a slice of cake. As if his mother hadn't told me to quit my business. As if his late-night messages to Vanessa were just harmless favors. But peace built on dishonesty is brittle. It cracks the moment pressure is applied. And that pressure came faster than I expected. 3 days later, Ting and I were doing a walkthrough at the new clinic site. The painters were behind schedule, the equipment shipment delayed. I was trying to stay calm, sipping my now cold coffee when Kevin showed up. Is that Kevin? Ryan's classmate. One of the guys from the reunion. I thought it was your name on the permit, he said cheerfully, shaking my hand. So this is your beauty clinic? I smiled politely. We're opening in 2 months. Kevin gave a low whistle. You've really built an empire, Claire. He leaned in conspiratorially. You know, you should have just asked Ryan to put us in touch. I would have redone your invoice on the spot. I already gave Vanessa a discount when she brought Ryan to our little product launch the other night. I froze. What launch? Kevin blinked. The new medtech demo. Vanessa booked a conference room at the Marriott. Pretty small crowd, just a few familiar faces. I assumed you were there too. I wasn't. No one told me. Not Ryan. Not Vanessa. Not anyone. Kevin seemed oblivious to my shift in expression. Honestly, it was kind of sweet. Felt like a college throwback. Just the crew supporting each other. He paused, grinning. Man, that woman really bounced back fast. She had a whole catalog ready and everything. I forced a smile. Thanks, Kevin. I'll be in touch. The moment I got into my car, I texted the wife of one of Ryan's department heads. A woman who had recently given birth and was still receiving postnatal treatments at my clinic. Hey, if Dr. X is free tomorrow, I'd love for him to drop by for a quick session. I promised you both a complimentary package, remember? She replied within minutes. He's swamped. I'll just come alone. Shui. Ryan just stepped out again. Said he was heading to a product launch at the Marriott with Dr. Shao. I stared at the message. My hand clenched around the steering wheel. So Ryan had lied. I didn't think. I just acted. I handed Jamie to the nanny, grabbed my keys and drove straight to the Marriott. Halfway there I started to second-guess myself. What if it's innocent? What if I barge in and embarrass myself for no reason? What if it really is a work event? But the feeling in my chest wouldn't let up. That weight of slow, creeping doubt had become too familiar. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just wanted the truth. I parked outside the hotel and asked the concierge about a medtech event. They pointed me to the second floor. Private room. Name under Vanessa Lynn. Of course. As I approached, I slowed near the door, just wide enough to see through the narrow frosted glass panel. And there they were. Ryan and Vanessa. She was in a sleek business suit, standing in front of a projector screen with her logo shining behind her. Ryan stood beside her, smiling, nodding, sipping wine, laughing. They looked comfortable. Too comfortable. Vanessa turned toward him, her hand brushing his forearm. He leaned in, whispered something. She laughed, the kind of laugh you save for a man you want to keep. I didn't move. I just watched. Ryan raised his glass high. Thank you all for coming tonight. Vanessa already gave you the technical breakdown, so I'll just say this. She's put together a solid product line. You'd be smart to jump on it now. Then he turned to her. To old friends, he said. They clinked glasses. She leaned into his side, raising her own glass. To new beginnings. A classmate whistled. You two look like you're making a toast at your wedding. Another joined in. Ryan, is this your do-over? The one that got away, huh? And Ryan laughed. He didn't deny it. He just laughed. I didn't barge in. Didn't slap anyone. Didn't yell. I simply left. I got into my car and parked 3 blocks away, near the edge of the hotel parking lot, hidden under a streetlight. Ryan came out with her 40 minutes later. He called a designated driver. I noted that he didn't call one for her. Instead, she got into the back seat with him. They sat side by side. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I followed them. Not because I wanted proof, but because I needed the final page in the chapter my heart had already started closing. They didn't head south toward her apartment. They circled the city, stopped for coffee, then drove near the pier, parked again. They stayed in the car for over an hour. Talking, laughing, intimate. And finally, when the car pulled up in front of her building, Vanessa leaned over and hugged him. Ryan didn't pull away. Not at first. His arms stayed frozen at his sides. Then slowly, painfully slowly, they wrapped around her. She tilted her chin up. He kissed her. I was still in my car, less than 20 feet away. I could have hit the horn. I could have screamed. Instead, I picked up my phone and called him. He answered immediately, his voice light, even cheerful. Hey babe, you hungry? I was thinking of grabbing something before heading back. My heart pounded. Where are you? On the way home. Just wrapped up a meeting with some investors. Had a bit to drink, so I called a driver. I let the silence stretch. Then I said calmly, I heard from Dr. Zhao's wife that Vanessa hosted a product launch tonight. Pause. Then, she did invite me, but you know I didn't want to upset my little jealous wife. Oh, jealous wife. I looked out my windshield and saw Vanessa in a spaghetti strap dress, the same one she used to wear in college, now walking back down to meet him again. It was late autumn. She must have been freezing. But he still looked at her like she was glowing. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Instead I said, didn't you promise me you'd never lie? There was no answer. Only the sound of him breathing. I watched them from behind my tinted glass. They stood outside her building for a long time, talking quietly, until finally she walked back upstairs. He stayed. Lit a cigarette. I called him again. This time my voice was softer. Ryan, your son's been waiting for you to tell him a bedtime story. He paused. Oh, I'll come home later, okay? Might not make it tonight. I'll message you. I'll have the nanny tell him the story, I said flatly. Just make sure you read one to her. The line went dead. I went home before he did. Walked quietly through the front door, past the family photos on the wall, into the room that still smelled like him. Jamie was fast asleep, his small body curled around the stuffed elephant I bought him last Christmas. I sat at the dining table, opened my laptop, and began. I didn't cry while drafting the divorce papers. There was nothing left to mourn. Just decisions to make. I pulled out our marriage certificate, the title deed for the house, the birth certificate we kept framed in Jamie's baby book. My fingers moved like they were typing someone else's life. In a way they were. Because whatever Claire Bennett existed before that kiss wasn't coming back. At midnight a message arrived. Honey, I'm staying at the hospital tonight. No one's here at the ward. I stared at it, then opened our old messages. Every one I'd ever transferred between phones. The years of good morning, beautiful. The photos of Jamie's first smile. The fights. The makeups. The promises. All of it. I tapped delete. Then I deleted him. Ryan didn't come home that night. Of course he didn't. He didn't know I had followed him. Didn't know I had seen the way he leaned into Vanessa outside her apartment, the way their kiss lingered like it belonged there. He didn't know my dashcam had captured every second of it in sharp, unforgiving detail. And when he answered my call, voice cool, rehearsed, claiming he was just heading home, I didn't cry. I just said, "Drive safe," and hung up. Then I walked back to my car, hands shaking only once, and started planning my exit. The next morning when he came downstairs, freshly showered and smiling like nothing had happened, I was already dressed. The divorce papers were on the kitchen counter. His name already printed on the signature line. "Claire," he said, blinking. "What is this?" "You know what it is." He went still. "You kissed her." He shook his head too quickly. "Claire, listen. It didn't mean anything. I was trying to be polite, it was the mood. You kissed her." His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. "I didn't sleep with her." "I never said you did." He took a step toward me. "Please. Please don't do this. Don't destroy our family over a single moment." "I'm not destroying anything," I said quietly. "I'm letting it fall the way you left it." "I messed up. I know. But Claire, we have Jamie." "Don't. Think about him." "I am thinking about him," I snapped, for the first time raising my voice. "That's why I can't let him grow up watching his mother be disrespected." Ryan's shoulders slumped. "I didn't think it would go that far," he muttered. "She was just there. And I guess I wanted to feel like I hadn't failed at everything. And I guess I wanted to believe you weren't the kind of man who needed a woman's suffering to feel useful again." He looked up shocked. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "It's accurate." Jamie was down then. Ryan stepped forward, panic creeping into his voice. "This is insane. You're being emotional." "Don't," I said flatly, picking up Jamie's favorite dinosaur from the couch. "Not in front of him." Jamie stood in the hallway in his pajamas, watching with wide eyes. Ryan hesitated, then crouched. "Hey buddy, how about you stay with Dad today? Let Mommy cool off." I turned sharply. "He's coming with me." "Claire." I leaned down to Jamie's level. "Let's go pack your backpack, sweetheart. We're going to stay somewhere with pancakes." Jamie's eyes lit up. "With whipped cream." I smiled softly. "And strawberries." He ran to his room, already excited. Ryan just stood there, rooted like a man waking up from a dream and realizing it was never his to begin with. I packed quietly, efficiently. Jamie's essentials, my files, a change of clothes, his blanket, except of course I forgot it. I didn't realize until we got to the apartment that night. But it didn't matter. Not then. Because I had Jamie's little hand in mine. And that for now was enough. I hadn't planned to go back. Not so soon anyway. But Jamie had forgotten his plush blanket, the one shaped like a dinosaur with tiny teeth at the edges, and he wouldn't sleep without it. Neither could I. So I returned the next evening. Just to grab a few things. Just to be in and out. Just to pretend for one moment that this was still just a house and not the scene of a quiet betrayal. I used my own keys. I didn't knock. The lights were already on when I walked in. Warm yellow flooded the hallway. I slipped my heels off quietly, expecting to hear Jamie's voice, maybe Ryan watching the news. But what I heard was laughter. Female laughter. I moved down the hall slowly. Then froze. There, at my dining table, the long oak one Ryan and I picked out after Jamie was born, the one we hosted his 3rd birthday on, sat Vanessa Lynn. Hair curled, earrings dangling, sleeves rolled up like she lived there. Across from her sat Mrs. Carter, smiling like she'd won a prize. Vanessa was holding a pair of chopsticks, lifting a bite of glazed fish to her mouth. "Oh," she said when she saw me, hand faltering slightly. Mrs. Carter turned too, pleasantly surprised. "Claire, you're here." I looked at her. Then at the table. Then at Vanessa. She had the nerve to smile. "We didn't expect you." "Curry." I didn't answer. Just stood in the doorway, jaw clenched, pulse steady. Mrs. Carter gestured to the empty seat at the head of the table. "My seat. Come sit. We were just having dinner." I blinked. Once. "Foley. Why is she here?" asked my voice low. "She stopped by the hospital," Mrs. Carter said casually. "I invited her over. She's just an old friend. You know they go way back." I didn't move. Vanessa cleared her throat softly. "I didn't mean to intrude, Claire. I was just dropping off some equipment specs and..." "Save it," I said. She fell silent. The kitchen light buzzed faintly behind me. Somewhere in the living room, Jamie's toy piano began playing a pre-recorded lullaby. The kind of mechanical sweetness that sounded haunting now. Ryan walked in from the hallway at that exact moment, holding a file in one hand, looking tired. When he saw me, he stopped. And when he saw Vanessa sitting at our table, his face paled. "Claire. I just came for Jamie's blanket," I said coolly. He stepped forward. "I didn't know she was here." "Of course you didn't." Vanessa pushed her plate slightly away. "I should go." "You think?" I said. She flinched. Mrs. Carter looked at me sharply. "There's no need to be rude. She's a guest." I turned toward her slowly. "A guest? She's just here for dinner. Did you also invite every woman your son has kissed this month, or just the ones I've caught?" Mrs. Carter gasped. "Claire." I ignored her and turned to Vanessa. "You want to sit at my table, Vanessa? At least have the spine to admit why you're here." Vanessa's voice cracked. "It wasn't like that." I took a step closer, folding my arms. "Did you forget the parking lot? The kiss? Or did you think I wasn't watching when you put your arms around my husband outside your apartment?" Ryan stepped in then, voice low. "Claire, please." I didn't look at him. "This was your mistake," I told her. "But sitting here, in my chair, using my plates, smiling at my mother-in-law, that's just disrespect." Mrs. Carter found her voice again. "Claire, this is excessive. You're making something out of nothing." I let out a cold laugh. "Nothing?" I turned to Ryan. "Tell your mother what happened that night. Tell her what you told me." He looked down at the floor. Vanessa stood up, grabbing her coat with trembling fingers. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I only came because you thought the door would still be open," I finished for her. "But it's not. Not anymore." She looked at Ryan then, one last desperate glance. But he avoided her eyes. "I'll see myself out," she whispered. She walked past me slowly, head low. I didn't move to stop her. Mrs. Carter's voice followed her like a nervous chime. "Drive safe, dear." I turned my gaze toward her next. "You knew," I said. Her brow furrowed. "Excuse me. You knew what happened. And you still invited her here. She's a family friend. She's his affair." Ryan looked like he wanted to crawl inside the wall. Mrs. Carter straightened her spine. "If my son made a mistake, we should deal with it like adults. Not escalate things unnecessarily. This is your marriage. You should be trying to fix it, not burn it to the ground." I exhaled. The kind of long, tired exhale that leaves nothing behind. "I'm not burning anything," I said. "I'm just done pretending it isn't already ashes." 10 minutes later, I was in Jamie's room, folding his blanket gently into my tote. I found his dinosaur slippers under the crib and added them too. I kept my breathing steady, even as I heard low voices in the hallway behind me. Mrs. Carter whispering to Ryan, Ryan trying to defend himself, defend her, defend them. I didn't care. I walked past them without another word. Just as I reached the front door, Ryan called after me. "Claire, wait." I turned the knob without looking back. "We'll talk through lawyers now." "Claire, please." I turned slowly, just once. "This wasn't just a mistake, Ryan. It was a choice. And now, so is this." I thought the worst part was behind me. I thought watching them kiss, hearing the lies, standing in my kitchen with a woman who once called my husband hers. I thought that was the lowest it could go. But betrayal has a way of digging tunnels even after you've hit the ground. The morning after I found Vanessa at my dining table, I woke up to a notification from my dashcam app. New footage recorded. I'd almost forgotten I'd parked directly behind Ryan's car that night. I didn't expect to use the footage, I just wanted to see. But when I watched it, there was everything. Them standing under the amber street lamp like no one else existed. The gentle touches. Her hand on his chest. His leaning in. Their lips meeting, lingering. The kiss wasn't accidental. It was intimate. It was rehearsed. And now, it was mine. We met at a neutral cafe near the courthouse. I'd asked him to come alone. He didn't. He brought his mother. Of course he did. "I think it's better if we keep this civil," Mrs. Carter said, sipping her overpriced herbal tea. "Jamie deserves 2 loving parents, not tension and trauma." Ryan nodded like a student being coached. "Claire," he started, voice low, "I want to do what's best. But maybe we can reconsider the joint custody schedule. Jamie's used to the house. I placed the phone on the table. Hit play. The video loaded in silence. Street lamp. Vanessa. Him. The kiss. Mrs. Carter gasped audibly. Ryan's face drained of color. No one spoke until the video ended. I looked up. I'd like full custody. Ryan blinked. Claire. I'm not keeping him from you. You'll get visitation. As per the draft agreement. But he's staying with me. Mrs. Carter sat frozen. He's just a child, she said finally. He shouldn't be caught in the middle of this. He shouldn't be raised in the middle of this, I corrected her. Ryan leaned forward, hands clasped. Please. Don't do this. I already said I'm sorry. This isn't revenge, Ryan, I said, my tone calm. This is protection. He swallowed. So what do you want? I want what's mine. Nothing more. We met again 2 days later. No lawyers. No press. Just the three of us in the living room of the house we used to call home. Jamie was at daycare. Mrs. Carter wasn't there. It was just Ryan standing with a folder in his hand and shame in his eyes. He handed me the signed deed. You can keep the house, he said. You raised our son here. You earned it more than I ever did. I took it without ceremony. I'm not asking for your shares, Ryan, I said. Or your accounts. I don't want a war. He shook his head. I know. I want Jamie. I want the house. And I want peace. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe he didn't. Maybe I didn't either. I moved back in that week. Not as a wife. As a mother. As a woman reclaiming her space. The rooms felt different. Smaller somehow. Not because they'd changed, but because I had. I removed the wedding photo from the hallway. Packed it in a box and labeled it archive. Not trash. Not memories. Just archive. Because I wasn't erasing what happened. I was storing it where it belonged. In the past. Jamie adjusted quickly. Children are resilient that way. He never asked why we moved back. He just ran down the hallway squealing when he saw his dinosaur blanket on the bed again. Me. I poured myself into my work. The postpartum center. The aesthetics clinic. The new hiring round for therapists and consultants. Every brick I had laid was mine, and now I built without waiting for someone else's approval. One night, a week after the house was officially in my name, Ryan showed up at the door. He didn't knock. He just stood there, hands in his pockets as I opened it with Jamie beside me. Hey buddy, he said, kneeling to Jamie's level. I brought you that fire truck we talked about. Jamie squealed, grabbing the toy from the gift bag. I watched silently. Then Ryan looked up at me. I just wanted to see him. You could have texted. I didn't think you'd answer. He wasn't wrong. I stepped aside, letting him in for a few minutes. Jamie showed off his toys while Ryan smiled and nodded like he still remembered how to be part of this family. But when it was time to go and Jamie waved goodbye, Ryan lingered at the door. You're not even going to ask how I've been? He said, half joking. I met his eyes. No. He nodded slowly. I figured. He turned to go. Then stopped. You really didn't want anything else? I never did, I said. I just wanted to be respected. He opened his mouth to speak. Closed it again. Then walked down the porch steps, slowly, like a man who no longer knew the weight of his own feet. Later that night, I lay in bed with the windows open. The house smelled like clean sheets and eucalyptus oil from Jamie's humidifier. The silence wasn't lonely anymore. It was mine. Peace doesn't last long when you're dealing with people who don't know when they've lost. I had everything I needed. The house, Jamie, my clinics, and a silence I had built brick by brick. I didn't ask for more. I didn't dig for revenge. I didn't post quotes on social media or make passive-aggressive comments at brunch. I simply lived. And that, I think, is what drove Vanessa mad. It started with whispers. One of my clients, a postpartum mother who also happened to be the wife of a hospital department head, mentioned it casually as she adjusted her robe before a lymphatic massage. Vanessa Lynn's been popping up at the hospital again, she said. Apparently she's there every other day. I nodded without reacting. She cornered my husband in the parking lot last week, she added with a smirk. Said she was just dropping off catalogs. But really, who wears 6-inch heels to deliver brochures? We both laughed, hers light and cruel, mine muted and careful. She must be desperate, she said, eyes glinting. After what happened with you and Ryan, she probably thinks she has a foot in the door. I didn't correct her. I didn't explain that Vanessa never had a foot in the door. She had simply walked through it when I wasn't looking. But now, I had built a new one. Reinforced. And it locked from the inside. The next public sighting happened at a conference downtown. A medical supplier's networking mixer. I wasn't there, but Ting was. She came back with her arms full of samples and her voice practically vibrating. "You're not going to believe this," she said. Vanessa showed up in a velvet dress and introduced herself as Ryan Carter's long-term business collaborator. I raised a brow. Long-term? Right. Ting scoffed. And then she said, "I've always worked closely with Carter Medical. We're very aligned. Like she's been your partner this whole time." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. People like Vanessa always expose themselves, if you give them a stage long enough. A week later, the real unraveling began. It was a Thursday. I had just finished a consultation and was walking through the recovery ward of my clinic when my phone buzzed. Vanessa Lin under investigation. Whistleblower alleges bribery, fraudulent equipment sales at Carter Medical. I stared at the headline. Not a tabloid. Not a rumor. A verified industry bulletin. I clicked the article. Vanessa Lin, managing partner of VME Health Solutions, had been accused of supplying defective machines to multiple private hospitals. Machines that had failed basic safety inspections, with sensors that misfired and data logs that disappeared after reboot. More damning? Several hospital directors were named as receiving incentives, in exchange for pushing her orders through without formal approval. Ryan's name was on the list. Not at the top, but close enough. I read it twice. Then again. Then slowly set the phone down. I wasn't surprised. Vanessa was always reckless with her charm. It wasn't a tool to her, it was currency. And Ryan, well, guilt makes people careless. Still, seeing their names bundled together under investigation? That was new. I didn't feel joy. Or satisfaction. Just confirmation. Like the final piece of a puzzle I had already solved. By noon, the board had suspended Ryan pending a formal review. 5 other directors were fired on the spot. One of them, Dr. Zhao, was the same man Vanessa had been texting day and night, the one whose wife had stopped lactating out of sheer stress. Rumors spread like wildfire. That Vanessa used seduction to get deals. That she gave cash-stuffed envelopes disguised as consulting fees. That at least 2 machines had dangerously malfunctioned during minor procedures. One patient had to be transferred. Another suffered burns from a faulty calibration system. I said nothing. I didn't post. I didn't comment. I didn't even forward the article to anyone. Because I didn't need to scream, "Look what they've done." The world was already watching. And this time they saw everything. Ryan called me that evening. I stared at the screen. Then let it ring. He texted. "Claire, I need to talk to you. They're blowing it out of proportion. I didn't know the equipment was faulty. Please just hear me out." I didn't reply. The next morning he showed up at the clinic. I had just stepped into my office when Ting buzzed in. "He's here," she said, her voice tight. "Wants 5 minutes." I looked at the security feed. He was standing in the lobby in a black coat, hands buried in his pockets, looking like a man who'd just been evicted from his own story. I didn't invite him up. That afternoon another article dropped. Insider confirms relationship between Carter Medical's suspended CEO and VME supplier Vanessa Lin. Investigation expands into personal conflicts of interest. Photos appeared. Grainy. Low-res. But unmistakable. One was from the class reunion, Ryan's hand on Vanessa's lower back. Another was from the launch party, them toasting together, heads close. Someone had been watching long before I had. Vanessa tried to salvage it, of course. She posted a carefully worded statement online. "As a working mother and entrepreneur, I have always strived to bring innovation to women's healthcare. These accusations are baseless and I will fight to clear my name. I am being targeted because of my gender and my success." The comments section lit up. And not the way she hoped. "You kissed a married man and sold broken machines. Women don't tear other women down to succeed. Success without ethics isn't success, it's a scandal. You're not being targeted. You're being exposed." I didn't say a word. Didn't even press like. I just brewed tea. Sat on my balcony. watched the city buzz under sunset, and waited, because sometimes silence is louder than thunder. I never imagined I'd walk through the front doors of Carter Medical again, at least not like this. Not in a fitted blazer with a full legal team flanking me. Not with acquisition papers tucked in a black leather folder. And certainly not with the knowledge that the man who once scolded me for trying too hard now had nothing left but a crumbling empire and a name being quietly erased from every office plaque. But life has a strange way of folding power back into the hands of those who were once dismissed. That morning I stood under the hospital's arched entrance and stared up at the sign, Carter Medical Center. Still intact. Still bold. But soon mine. The receptionist recognized me instantly. Mrs. Bennett, Miss. Sorry, do I say? Claire is fine, I said with a calm smile. She hesitated when she saw the attorneys beside me. One of them handed over a letter of intent, followed by a signed due diligence packet. We're here for the final review, he said. Per the agreement. She nodded shakily and picked up the phone. He's expecting you, she said a moment later. Second floor. Executive wing. Of course he was. The elevator ride was silent. My lawyer, Daniel, adjusted his cufflink and glanced at me. You're sure you want to do this in person? I nodded. He needs to see who's signing the check. Daniel offered a tight smile. Good. The doors opened. Ryan was already waiting outside his former office. Looked hollow. Still dressed sharply but thinner than I remembered. A gray tinge beneath his eyes, the kind of weariness that expensive suits can't hide. Claire, he said softly. You look efficient, I finished. He looked down. Come in. The office hadn't changed. Still the same skyline view. The same framed degree from Stanford. The same untouched crystal decanter on the corner shelf. A gift from my parents on our 3rd anniversary. How fitting. A marriage now preserved in glass. I sat down across from him as Daniel placed the file on the desk. The terms are clear, I said. This isn't a hostile acquisition. You'll retain your personal assets, but the hospital and its management will transfer under my holding company within the quarter. Ryan nodded slowly. He hadn't spoken since we entered the room. Finally, he reached for the pen. I know why you're doing this, he said. I waited. He looked up, his eyes searching mine. You want to get back at me. For everything. I let out the faintest breath of a laugh. This isn't revenge, Ryan. This is real estate. He looked away. When he signed the first document, his hand trembled. When he reached the last page, he hesitated. This place, it was my father's legacy. And I ruined it. I didn't respond. Maybe this is your way of offering me peace, he said. Closure. Letting me walk away with dignity. I tilted my head. You think I'm giving you peace? He gave a weak smile. You're here. That must mean something. I stood slowly, collected the contract, then looked at him for what felt like the final time. You didn't give me anything, I said clearly. I earned this. I earned every square foot, every desk, every patient room, every light bulb. He said nothing. I built my future while you were building excuses, I added. This isn't a peace offering. It's a transfer of power. And you're lucky I'm buying it instead of burying it. Silence filled the room like fog. He stood too but didn't meet my gaze. Claire. I paused at the door. He looked like a man who had just woken up from a long, beautiful dream, only to realize it was someone else's. I hope one day you understand the difference between love and possession, I said. Then I walked out, and left him with the contract. And the regret. I signed the closing documents at 2:17 p.m. At 2:18, I officially became the sole owner of the hospital once named after his family. That night I didn't celebrate. There was no champagne. Just quiet. The kind of quiet you earn. The kind that's not just the absence of noise, but the absence of needing to explain yourself. Jamie was already asleep when I got home. His toy fire truck was still blinking in the hallway. I picked it up, set it on his nightstand and kissed his cheek gently. He stirred, mumbled something about dinosaurs and rolled over. I stood there for a long time watching him breathe. No one would ever rewrite his family's story without me at the center of it again. I used to think strength came in silence. That if I swallowed every hurt with grace, forgave before I healed, stayed even when I bled, I'd be seen as good, worthy, wife material. But all that made me was forgettable. And I was never meant to be forgotten. Now when I walk through the glass doors of my postpartum center, the one with lavender walls and crystal bassinets, the nurses greet me with confident nods. Not out of fear, but respect. The lobby smells of eucalyptus and baby lotion. The floors shine with purpose. The walls have my name on every permit. Claire Bennett, founder. Down the street, my medical spa hums with clients and consultations. Women walk in hunched from heartbreak and come out lifted, not just by skin but by self-belief. The kind I had to rediscover inch by inch. And further uptown, where marble columns cast long shadows at dusk, stands the hospital that once bore another man's surname. Oh, it belongs to me. Vanessa tried one last time. Of course she did. Desperation always arrives late, but loud. She showed up at the clinic during closing hours, draped in oversized sunglasses and a too familiar trench coat. Ting intercepted her at the front. She says it's personal, she said, not hiding her disgust. I stood behind the glass, sipping ginger tea, already tired. Let her in. Vanessa walked in with the gait of someone who still believed she had leverage. But her face told the truth, she was tired. Edges fraying. Claire, she said with an exhale, voice low. I didn't come to fight. Then you should have come earlier, I replied. She blinked. Ryan's completely cut off, she said as if that was news to me. Investors won't touch me. Everyone thinks I bribed my way in. You did. Her mouth twitched. It wasn't just me. He signed the orders. He vouched for the contracts. And now he's living in the ashes. She looked around the lobby, eyes scanning the crystal fixtures, the nurses moving in gentle efficiency. This is yours. All of it. Vanessa let out a weak laugh. You really won, didn't you? I tilted my head. I didn't play a game. I built a life. She looked down at her hands. What do you want me to do? Apologize. I set my tea down. I don't need anything from you, Vanessa. Not your regret. Not your excuses. Not your sob story. I stood. You came here hoping to be understood. But I'm not here to understand you. I'm here to forget you. She opened her mouth to speak, then shut it. That was the last time I ever saw her. Ryan called me 2 weeks later. I was reviewing new designs for a rooftop cafe above the clinic. A place where mothers could watch the sunset while feeding their newborns. His name lit up my phone like a distant memory. I answered out of curiosity. Not kindness. I saw the news, he said. They're calling you the future of women's health. They're not wrong. Pause. Claire, he said softly, do you ever think about us? I stared out the window, watching the traffic snake past the skyline like ribbon. I do. Do you think we'll ever come back from this? I didn't raise my voice. Didn't laugh. Didn't cry. I simply said, I might marry again. A beat. But never to you. Jamie turned 6 the day my new pediatric wing opened. He wore a tiny lab coat with Dr. Jamie embroidered on the chest, handing out plastic stethoscopes to every child in the room. Ryan didn't show. He'd been invited. But he didn't come. Perhaps even he knew this chapter didn't belong to him anymore. That evening, just as the city lights began to bloom across the horizon, Jamie tugged my hand and pulled me up to the rooftop garden. Close your eyes, he said. No peeking. I laughed and did as told. When he gave the signal, I opened them and there it was. A hand-drawn poster taped to the pergola beams, scrawled in big messy letters. World's best boss equals mom. I knelt beside him, heart softening. You made this. He beamed. Ting helped with the sparkles. I hugged him tight. The wind danced through his curls. Below us, the glow of the clinic windows looked like constellations. The hospital shimmered in the distance. The spa sat nestled between buildings like a hidden gem. Every piece of it was mine. Not gifted. Not inherited. Earned. Built. Brick by stubborn brick. Jamie leaned against my side and sighed. You do a lot of things. I do. But being my mom is your favorite, right? I kissed his forehead. Always. He grinned. Then I'm glad Dad was dumb. Otherwise you'd be busy being sad. I burst into laughter. Jamie. What? It's true. I looked at him, all heart, all honesty, all mine, and smiled. Maybe, I said. But I'm not sad anymore. He gave me a toothy grin. Good. Then you can be queen of everything. I looked out at the empire below me. And I whispered not to him, but to the woman I used to be. He broke his vows. I built my throne. The end.